Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake of
technology increased, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.
Welcome, everybody, to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovesi. And I want to thank you for showing up today. We hope you're joining us every single week as we come at you live, 1 p.m. every Wednesday, live on LinkedIn. And that's Eastern time. And if you can't join us every week, look, we understand. We want you to be able to catch whatever you need to catch from what we're doing here and what we're putting together. So go to masterconnector.show. And you can see all the episodes that are coming up, all the guests, the future guests that we have. So if there's somebody you need to hear from, mark your calendar with that date so you don't miss it at all. And I want to thank our man, Russ Hedge, for sponsoring today's episode. Russ Hedge, he successfully transformed your business. He helps you connect to new customers. He does this in a very real human way. He's a great friend of the show. He's excellent at what he does. Connect with him, RussHedge.com. All right. So thank you, Russ Hedge. Appreciate it. And look, we are coming at you every week and bringing you amazing, amazing guests. It's true. They're going to bring their stories, their experiences, their skill sets to help you level up your thing so that you become even more successful. And the idea is connecting here. So look, I'm not going to blather any further because look, we're all connectors here. Make sure you get in those comments too and watch us live. Get in there and ask questions. Never walk away from a meeting without getting your question answered. But listen, we're all connectors here, but there's only one master connector. Let's bring him up. Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
All right, here we are. What's going on? Rob G. Tech stuff. I love it. It's awesome. Appreciate you, bud. I'm excited. And even though we're having tech challenges, excited here. But it's been great to be able to do the show with you over the last, I don't know, it's been what, 2.5 years, 3 years? Yeah. How long have we been doing this now?
Yeah, it's going on 3 years.
Yeah, I know the show started in 2020 in November, thanks to my man Cameron Toth, and you've picked up the mantle and taken it to a new level together with us. So appreciate you big time. What's going on, everyone? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And, pumped about this show tonight or today. I do a lot of stuff at night too. So, but here's a question for you all. What if the strongest connection you'll ever make is the one you build with yourself? Now, I got to be honest with you, as I was, going through the ranks, trying to be a successful entrepreneur, trying to be as successful as I possibly could, I remained busy. And part of it was I was so wounded and broken as a human that I just wanted to avoid people, avoid thinking about myself. So I just stayed busy, and that worked for a little while. But some of you know, I was introduced, Rob and I both were introduced to an incredibly successful mentor at one point, and he is still my mentor to this day. But he challenged me and got me on a path of self-development, and that started the journey. It's all his fault, okay? But it's a blessing, and it got me on the self-development challenge, right? Started reading reading books, and nowadays audiobooks actually, and podcasts, and going to conferences and getting into that networking world. And that really started to shift the script for me in a major, major way. And I started to really think about, okay, if I'm going to succeed, who do I need to become to succeed? And a lot of it was through some of the challenges that my mentor gave me and said, listen, people don't build businesses. You build a man, and the man builds businesses. And so he challenged me. And so obviously today that was a lot of self-growth, a lot of things, being a introvert, as Rob said, and shy and wounded, broken, bullied, and all these kinds of things that I was dealing with, to what I am able to, do today, which is being on a live broadcast, go figure, and being an inspirational keynote speaker and getting out on physical stages and having written the book you see right there up on the screen here, and having the ability to really inspire people. That's been amazing. And it started because I first had to connect with me. I had to really figure out, okay, who am I and where do I want to go and who do I want to become? I have a good friend of ours, Hugh, would say, Rob remembers him saying this a lot. He said, it's all about overcoming to become. And, yes, we all have our challenges or backstories. And, mine was pretty ugly, if you will, in a lot of ways, maybe not as ugly as some others. But the past is the past. And who you are today is not defined by your past. It helps shape some of who you are, but it doesn't tell you who you are going to be moving forward. And so, yes, you acknowledge the past. You should not live in it, but you need to look at today and what the future looks like, and not live in the future. You need to live today and here and the now, but live in a way that you can now have the kind of future and lifestyle you want. And that was all through self-discovery and self-growth. So I'm excited. So if you are just as excited as I am, I want you to put in the comments right now. Let's go, because I'm going to have my man, Robbie G, pass the baton and introduce Maurice. Rob, I'll pass it to you, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Let's go. Today's guest is Maurice Thibodeau, a transformational coach, master hypnotherapist, and the creator of the Life Inventory Assessment. Maurice helps people gain radical clarity around who they are, where they're truly meant to go. His work is centered on purpose, fulfillment, and creating breakthroughs that don't just feel good in the moment, but actually stick. He also trains coaches to guide deeper, more meaningful change rooted in self-awareness and connection. If you're ready for an honest look at your life and what's possible next, you're in for a powerful conversation. Please welcome to the show, Maurice Thibodeau. What's up, Maurice?
Hey, how are you guys doing? So glad to be here on this important topic.
Absolutely. So blessed to have you on here. And I just want to acknowledge a few people on here. Obviously, Russ Hedge, sponsor of our shows, on here. Good morning, Russ. Glad to have you on here. And of course, new friend, Norm Boaz of Speakfluence is on here as well. And my amazing sister is on here. And we've got also Olga. Great to have you on here with us, Olga. And amazing Jody Odell Ames. If you haven't connected with Jody, she is incredible. When she comes into the room, it lights up the room. She's just amazing. So appreciate you, Jody, in a major way. So let's go. But let's dive into it, Maurice. Great to have you on here. And I want to start with some questions here. So here's the first. And, I learned that you have to have kind of a North Star. You have to have a compass in terms of where you're looking to go. And a lot of times, my mentor would say to me, he'd say, hey, listen, if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to like where you end up, Mm-hmm. And so I want to talk about compass. So community, type in hashtag compass. How do you help people replace self-judgment with compassion so reflection becomes empowering?
Wow. Great question. It's so relevant. So it's all about safety. At the end of the day, if we're reflecting, we have an incredible voice that is a master judge.
Yep.
And it's amazing at what it does. And, to not judge it, it's actually kept us really, really safe and served a purpose in our life. So to move towards reflection, it's about creating safety. And the best way that I know how to do that is to actually be present with somebody in non-judgment, to really create the space of, whatever you got going on, it's okay. It doesn't define you. And we're going to look at it, and we're going to look at it with radical compassion. And I've got 3 principles when I work with people, and one of them is radical compassion. And I take 5 minutes to describe what the heck that is, and to also say when we judge, that's a normal part of who we are. It's actually can be a really productive part of who we are. It's what we do with that judgment in between. So the short answer is to create that safe space to have a look.
I love that. Yeah. And I want to say, I was one of those guys that were very, very self-critical, very judgmental of myself. I think sometimes we call it, these days, imposter syndrome, or, that sort of, you just don't believe that you belong, and, you're not worthy. And that was me for a long time. And I think that helped me to a degree. To your point, it helped me become, push myself. But at the same time, at some point, I had to start realizing, you know what, I'm okay. And hopefully, my TEDx talk gets approved and gets out to the public, because I talk a little bit about how I met with my sister, Eileen, who's on here. She had she said she doesn't mind, but she had a therapist she was seeing for a while, and he was a man of faith, and she spoke highly of him. And I saw him, and he said one thing to me. He said, Steve, I've had a lot of people that have sat at that seat right where you're sitting on in that chair, and they're messed up. But I look at you and all that you've accomplished, and you're awesome. And for me, I think I just needed that one person, one significant person that I had a lot of respect for, tell me I was okay. And that really helped me in my scenario, So, but let's keep moving, right? So I think we talk a lot about the why on the show and what drives us. And, often you need to be clear with what that why is. So, and by the way, before we get to that, so pause that for a second. I just want to say we've got Kim Curran on here. So appreciate you, Kim. I'm glad to have you back on the show. And then Joseph's on here. Joseph, I don't know if we've seen you on the show before, but it's great to have you on with us here. So appreciate all the participation. Make sure, listen, everyone get in. Like Rob said, get in the comments and connect with each other. All right, so back to the question. The little comment from your sponsor there. Okay, so clarity. Community, typing hashtag clarity. Why does the brain need structure to truly understand growth and progress?
Yeah. So I think of this simple question, right? Where we ask friends and family, like, how are you? And it's a surface level question. And you get usually I won't swear, a BS answer or a surface level answer, because that's kind of the level that you're playing at. Well, if we're in self-reflection, and why can't we actually just look at our lives and be like, how am I? And if you're honestly taking a look, it's actually not as simple as doing an inventory and being able to like grab that without structure. And the reason is, it's actually a beautiful reason. We're living in abundance. Like, I've got a family to think about, and the relationships with each one of my daughters in there, and then the relationship with my wife. So not just how are my relationships. A lot of times I have relationships with my friends, and each one of those has a spoke. I have a relationship with my teachers. That's just relationships. I've got my financial life to think about. I get to live a life of my leisure, and how am I going to spend my time? When we actually start to break down all these categories, and even there's categories within the categories, our brains actually, as magnificent as they are, we can't take all of that at once. We can only handle so many components at a time. So if we don't have context, we actually can't honestly look at that question. We can't say, how am I doing right now? What's my self-reflection on how I'm living? It's actually a really complicated question that your brain doesn't have the capacity without structure to figure out. So when you create that context, which takes time, and most of us don't take the time, but when you give yourself the time to actually create structure to say, okay, how am I doing in my love relationship? And then just look at the components of that. That could be like a whole, right, a phase of inquiry. And then when you do that and when something breaks down, it's easy for us to grab that thing that's broken down and dig in. I've found value, and have been doing it for many, many years, where at least once in a while, you actually step back with structure and take a look at the whole picture. If you're running a business, you don't run that business for years and years and years. Chances are, if you're actually on top of it, every quarter you're looking at the whole components. How is our marketing? How is our HR? What do our financials look like? At least yearly, you're looking at all the pieces, creating a strategy and a roadmap to go to the next year. We don't usually do that with our lives. We only look at stuff that really breaks down or that we're having great fun in. And then we just hope the rest works out. And I've found great value in creating structure for that kind, compassionate reflection, so that we can see, hey, are we in alignment here? Are we on track? Are there any blind spots that I'm completely ignoring because my master judge is great at having me ignore them? And then we create that as a habit.
So I love what you said there. And, before we came on live, audience, I was telling Maurice I was excited about this because the whole self-awareness thing is something that I love to think about and talk about. And I'm going to have a question for you in a second, Maurice. But what I realized for myself is I'm hardwired to do that. I'm always thinking very strategically and I'm always in self-reflection. I'm always thinking, how are my words coming across? What are my actions saying to people? All these things. And I think a lot. And my wife is like, she just go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
So she would always say to me, you think too much about stuff, or you think a lot about stuff. And what I realize is it's probably one of my strengths is that because I can do that, because I never took any courses or frameworks or anything to teach me that. But if I can break down what you're saying and then ask you a question, I compartmentalize my life into relationships, and then there's my kids and my wife, my friends, my health, my finances, these kind of things. But I do that all the time. What would you say to somebody who isn't naturally like me and is going, I don't know how to break that down to look at it? What would you say to them?
Yeah. There's two things that are coming up. Actually, I have another inquiry that you didn't ask, but what I would say to them is start somewhere and find structure, right? So if you're like, well, how do I look at these things? There's lots of free resources available, and I would create a date with myself, like a real date where you're going to actually sit down and allow yourself not to escape, not to get distracted. And it can start with a yellow pad of paper and say, okay, how am I doing? What are the roles that I play in my life? What are the components? I've actually built a tool that does this, but you can do it with simply time and curious inquisition. And then from that, how am I doing? You start there, start somewhere. The simple of like, how happy do I feel in each of these components of my life? Right. And then you can answer why behind that. Yeah. I've been doing this a lot of years, so I've got 5 different components that I've found to be really related to finding the depth that we can actually activate. So I'll name them because if someone's doing this, they can actually write this down. And so let's say you're doing my love relationship. Component 1, how happy do I feel? That's coming from your mind, your intellectual. You've got a vision of what your love life should be and where it's at. How happy do you feel? I rate it. I use a scale of 0 to 10. Next, how capable do I feel? Do I feel capable to actually enact the vision of my life that I want? And that's kind of a self-reflection. Next is how engaged I am. So it's like when I'm with my loved one, me, my wife, am I with her? Am I actually engaged? Or am I in some kind of distraction, a whole bunch of other? Yeah. Next is what is my time alignment? So if you're going through, it's like, am I spending the right amount of time for me in this? Right away, I find it like a rating, an answer. And then finally, I find the most telling, we come in and we ask our body. It's like, yeah, actually, in this one, it helps to close your eyes. In my love life, how fulfilled do I feel? And what happens inside my body? Do I feel a heaviness, a tension, or do I feel light and lifted? And in my scale, it's like if you're light and lifted, that's like a 10. I feel positive. I think about my kids. I feel, and it's actually a different answer for each one of them a little bit, based on what they're at. But, overall, I feel really light and lifted and positive. In some of those categories in my life right now, I might like, oh, I feel some tension. Your body does keep the score. It's got tremendous wisdom. We've mostly lost touch with it. So those are the 5 questions that I, ask against 13 different categories before I start working with somebody. And I hope that's helpful in your question, because it's actually as simple as write those down and give yourself some time.
Yeah, I mean, people need a system to follow. Otherwise,
Yeah.
Yep. But I also heard start, because again, this
Yes.
analysis paralysis, which is a lot of, and I suffer from that too sometimes, that analysis paralysis. We're talking about awareness and of course self-awareness. I also think, and we're not going to touch on it here, but situation awareness is also incredibly important as well. I was with Rob knows him, Jeff, and he's amazing at being situationally aware. But again, I know this is a little more on the self-awareness piece. So community, type in hashtag awareness. And what I'd like to touch on here is, and we've touched a little bit on self-awareness, but what do most people misunderstand? How do they misunderstand about self-awareness? What are the most, misunderstood things about self-awareness?
Great question. I'm gonna start with the bit of a inquiry that I had when Rob was describing, hey, like I think about stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like part of my natural component. I think if you're not that person, you look at those other people, and sometimes I would guess that sometimes your wife is like, you think about things too much. Like, man, I'll just be in the moment. So I bring that up as a direct answer to start. Like, I think sometimes there's a perception or fear around, I don't want to always be in my head constantly evaluating and inviting that judge in on how I'm doing. And I think that's actually really a relevant, very, very relevant and important question and concern. And I think it can be a misperception, but also it can be a reality of some people will fall into this constant cycle of what happened in the past, what happened in the future, and never being right here. I'm certainly guilty of that.
Yeah.
And to that, I say it's about giving yourself the windows of reflection and then getting the heck out of there, getting the heck out of the way. Steve, you're a tremendous speaker. I'm projecting here, but I bet you've got it. You practice, you do the work, you know what's going to happen. You do that reflection. I'm going to relate it to that, so that when you get up on stage, you can just be present. You don't have to think about whether you're going to say this or that. The preparation can actually give you presence. And I think the speaking world is a good metaphor for that.
Sure.
So I just pulled out one. I might think of some others. If you got a better question, hit me with it. But I can think of some other misconceptions if you think it's valuable.
No, I mean, you certainly could continue riffing. I do want to touch on discomfort. Maybe you could tie it into that. There's a lot of people, I mean, obviously being a speaker, doing a broadcast, these are uncomfortabilities, right? And, I think we've learned that success never happens inside the comfort zone. You got to get uncomfortable. And then in sort of that messiness, it comes, magic, if you will. And so, and I think you say that often, that mess is often your gateway to magic. And so community, type in the hashtag discomfort, but there's the question, right? Why do you believe that our mess is often the gateway to our magic? I know you said that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And my brain's like going on fire because I want to bring out one of the other misconceptions.
Yeah.
We think it's a lie to ourselves because our subconscious it's in heavy protection mode. It doesn't want you to experience the pain of transformation.
Yep.
And the only way through is through, but it's doing its best job to protect you. And it's got a loving purpose. And the misperception is the fear of the pain is almost always greater than the pain itself.
Oh yeah. No doubt.
Once the pain's addressed, it's actually really fast.
Yep.
The body is amazing. And once it realizes that it's not going to die, you might cry, you might release, and that's amazing, but that's a super short period of time.
That is true.
But that part of you that's protecting, it's got swords, it's got shields, it's experienced, it's standing guard. And when you start to move towards it, it's like, mm-mm. And that's where I think the best therapists, coaches, transformationalists, they create safety and they say, hey, I know you're here to guard, and I'm not here to change you. You've done an amazing job. I'm just here to understand you a little bit better. And in that understanding, the pain becomes alive, but the guard actually transforms their job. They're like, oh, you mean I don't have to guard against that anymore? Cool. And they put down their swords and they become something different. It's still a part of you. So that through the mess, we find our magic, and through that pain, we find our growth. And it often happens much quicker and with much less intensity than it needs to.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is mind blowing. And, you know, you want to talk about guarding. I mean, Rob saw me early on. We know each other. He says 28 years. I think he's probably right. I think I met you, Rob, in 99. So I guess whatever the math on that is, if that's 28, but yeah, it was around 99. You know, right at the beginning of 99. But I was really guarded. Now, whether Rob knew that or not, I was like, because I was so broken, like I said, and wounded, had this shield over me. And so I really had to, you know, break those walls, those barriers down. And it took a lot of time for it to, and I'm still working on breaking some of those barriers
Steve,
down.
you may have been guarded, but I was clueless, so I never noticed.
Well, I could relate to the clueless. So I was double damaged, right? Clueless and guarded, you know. But anyway, I just want to touch on one last thing. You know, obviously this is the Master Connector show, and it's about connecting with others. So I want to talk real quick. And by the way, welcome back, Yolanda Chin. She's here. We love having you on the show with you, Yolanda. I want to acknowledge her. But here's a question on alignment. So can we type in hashtag alignment as we wind the show down real quick here? And need this to be concise as we close down. But how does connecting with yourself change the way you connect with others?
When you're aligned with yourself, you've let down the barriers.
Yeah.
You've gotten through the fears, and it allows you to take off the mask. People feel that.
Yeah.
Like they really feel it, and it gives them permission to take off their mask. And to me, that's the most beautiful thing. That's like people truly connecting. It's let's get rid of the BS and just be together. And when you lead right through past the fears, people feel that, and it gives them permission to be themselves too.
That's awesome. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with the screen, so apologies. We'll figure that out post show. But
AI is taking over.
I don't know what's going exactly. Yeah, the machines are taking over. But regardless of all that, the content has been incredible. So if you can't manage the visual, just close your eyes and just listen to Maurice, because it's amazing. But we appreciate you, Maurice. We have to close the show down, unfortunately, but I know you have a 50% off life assessment offer, and we have a link that we're going to post in the chat. Would you tell the community about that? And then after that, maybe what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, for sure. So that offer, and I actually just reduced the price again. So if you're looking for a structure to look deeply at your life really quickly, that's what that is. It's called the Life Inventory Assessment. It's been built from my own reflections over 20 years. It's a pretty cool interactive way to have that date with yourself. And the best way to connect with me, LinkedIn, DM me on LinkedIn, Facebook. Those are I'd love to chat, love to truly connect. And if I can't be a direct help, I love, just like you, right, what this is all about. It's let's connect people with the ways that they can show up and with their best selves. So
love it. Appreciate you big time. I'm gonna have you go in the green room if you want to hang around a little bit afterwards, but just appreciate you, Maurice, big time. You brought a lot of incredible value here. So thank you again. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yep. Awesome stuff. Wow. Well, listen, if you like that, we're a quarter of a century, if you will. We're at 250 episodes this coming week. It's going to be March 4th. Happens to be my wife's birthday. So we'll be celebrating for her. But the value of trust-based conversations with Bob Wood. It's going to be a great show. Don't miss it. And if you're interested, like Mr. Rush Heads, Russ Hedge, yes, that. And being a sponsor, go to masterconnector.show, or if you're interested in being a guest, and we're booked out all the way to I think October, but definitely go to masterconnector.show to learn more about that. Obviously, as you probably saw, Rob's got a book, amazing book. I've read it. I love it. It's called Don't Fill the Brand. It's an insightful new book on the art of building a strong brand that attracts. And he reveals how he overcame paralyzing fear to build a strong brand that 4x his revenue. Get the inside story by clicking in the comments right now. So I want to finish up real quick with a story, as I like to do this. Viola Davis grew up in extreme poverty, carrying deep self-doubt and trauma long before she ever stepped onto stage. It wasn't until she fully accepted her story, right? Sound familiar? We're talking about that. Her pains, flaws, and all, that her performance became magnetic, honest, and world-changing, leading to her become one of the most respected actors of our generation. Let her journey remind us that when we stop running from who we are and choose self-compassion, we don't just transform our own lives, we become a beacon of light that gives others permission to do the same. Folks, let's make sure to shine our light. God bless. We'll see you next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.